Let's do a quick overview of Entra ID, and then I'll show you a demonstration by going into the Entra ID admin console. Entra ID used to be called Azure Active Directory. Now, the Azure Active Directory site is still up and running, at least for now. Eventually, it will be completely replaced with the Entra ID console. So you can get it into either the old Azure AD site or the new Entra ID site for at least the foreseeable future. Entra ID, what is it? Entra meaning entrance, ID meaning identification. It's the identification required to authenticate you to enter the Microsoft Azure cloud space. That's all it is. It's secure identity management. There's a database involved. When you first create an account with Microsoft 365, say to get your email license for Exchange Online or Microsoft Office, then it also creates a tenant or a home for Entra ID. You may not even realize it. You may not have even seen it, but it's also there and it can be accessed in the Entra ID console. It's mainly for cloud security. It's mainly for accessing cloud resources. However, if you have a hybrid configuration, that basically means you have on-premises Active Directory, and then you also have some resources in the cloud like Exchange Online, Microsoft Office, or any one of many other Azure resources, then it can also secure both. You can access Entra ID from the Azure portal. So you can go to portal.azure.com, and from there you can click on the Entra ID icon. There are many advantages to Entra ID, such as secure digital identification. And when we say secure, that basically means that it's not going to just be the username and password. You also have the multi-factor authentication, of which you have multiple options. You could choose a fingerprint, a face ID using Windows Hello. You could use the Microsoft Authenticator app, which is going to be the default option. There's also options for texting using SMS as well. However, that's not going to be quite as secure as, say, the Authenticator app. To get the Authenticator app, you simply just go to your app store for your phone and you can type in Microsoft Authenticator and then download, and then you'll be prompted for allowing the login from the website anytime you try to log in. It has a user-friendly interface. You don't have to be a programmer in order to be an Entra ID administrator, which is great. You can simply learn the Entra ID interface, have the proper roles, and start using and managing users and groups and other resources in Entra ID. It has enhanced security and fraud prevention. And what I mean by that is there's a lot of different compliance requirements that are met, such as Sarbanes-Oxley, HIPAA, and many other types of compliances that are in various different vertical markets, such as the financial market, the health market, various different countries, and their various ways of having compliance requirements. They are all covered using enhanced security and fraud prevention within Entra ID. You also have streamlined access management. Because you don't have to be a programmer, you can easily log into Entra ID, make any changes you need, and you can get out. You can even specify junior administrators to be able to have just-in-time access, which basically means they can go in and make changes just for a limited time to prevent fraud. And there's an improved user experience. For the users themselves that go to log in, it's very easy to put in your username and password into your computer or whatever other way you have to log in and authenticate into your computer or your mobile device, and then have the Authenticator app pop up. You type in a number, and then you're logged in. Entra ID is fairly simple when it comes to the user registration process. The administrator goes and creates the username either in Microsoft 365 or in Entra ID, and it will automatically create the user ID in the other service. So for instance, if you make it in 365, it's an Entra ID. You make it in Entra ID, it's also in 365. Now, if you want to register a device, you can also do that by going to the work or school option inside your Windows client. It needs to be at least a professional or enterprise device operating system. And then from there, you can go ahead and register it with Entra ID. And that gives you a lot of options, such as the administrator will be able to manage that computer remotely when needed. Now, you may be very familiar with various different types of verification mechanisms, such as NT Land Manager or NTLM or Kerberos. And that is your typical way of authenticating using your Azure Active Directory. But when accessing your Entra ID service, you're going to be using any one of multiple other types of authentication protocols, such as SAML, OpenID Connect, OAuth, or WS Federation. Now, you don't have to be an expert in these areas. It's just a matter of making sure you check all the right boxes on both ends so that way you can connect into these access control protocols. And this isn't just used for user authentication, but also application identification. One of the great features of Entra ID is the ability to synchronize your on-premises Active Directory into Entra ID and have single sign-on. So let's say you log into your computer and get authenticated locally using Active Directory. From there, you want to open up Microsoft Outlook to connect to Exchange Online. You're going to use one of these access control protocols to authenticate you without having to type in your username and password or get multi-factor authentication to be done again. It's automatic because you've already done it, and it's synchronized between on-premises and in the cloud. Entra ID is the starting off point for enterprise mobility as it authenticates users prior to accessing any data.